Okay, ruin the movie life for me. What happens?
Mm. Um, so basically, the creature, and you're going to cringe when you hear the concept, but bear with me.
Mm.
The creature is supposed to be a multicellular organism where every cell can do every function, and this makes it like indestructible. Um,
Interesting.
so it chases them around the space station for a bit,
Mm-hmm.
and then they make a plan to just jettison the station into space. But it gets in the pod with one of them, and they're like, okay, one of us has to make it back to Earth. So the one who's it's in the pod with, they'll get shot off into deep space forever to die,
Mm-hmm.
and the other person gets to go back to Earth. And then you think that's happened, and you wait for them to triumphantly emerge from the capsule,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's revealed that actually the capsule that landed on Earth is the one that has the creature in it,
Oh,
and the one that has the other person is just shooting out into space.
that's yeah. But is this creature something that's capable of taking over the world?
Yeah, it basically kills people on contact and just eats them.
So it assimilates them, essentially.
Sort of, yeah.
Wow. And does it become more human as it eats more humans?
No, it's like a squid octopus fish thing.
Oh, okay. And marks out of 10 for the movie
It was a
Life.
good film. It's like so it would be like a 9 out of 10 if Aliens didn't already exist,
Mm.
like the Alien franchise.
Yep.
So it's gonna have to be a 7 or an 8 out of 10.
7 or 8. That's pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
I'll look into it.
Unfortunately, I've just spoiled the film, so
I mean, it's. I think some of these are quite predictable that they'd leave it as a
yeah.
cliffhanger. Um, I think every movie that's not Deadpool is better with limited Ryan Reynolds. So I might check that out. Does he try any jokes in this movie? Is he meant to be a funny character, or is he meant to be a serious character?
No, not really. He's and no, there's not really any funny characters in it. I don't think.
Hmm. I don't know. He has that kind of voice that you can't take seriously.
Not in this film. He doesn't. In this film, he's just a normal actor.
Okay. So he doesn't use his natural voice. He puts on a voice of authority.
I suppose he does. Yeah.
No, that's great. Movie Life. I'll check it out.
Mm.
So what's on our agenda today?
So the agenda today, I was thinking,
Mm.
if you've done a video game 3x3, we
Mm.
could do that. And also we would talk about
Yep.
mini games.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, no, video game 3x3. I haven't set one up, but I can do that off the top of my head, no problem.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well then, are you sure about that?
Oh yes, I can. Do you have a 3x3?
Maybe you should. I do, yeah. But
Ooh.
first of all, I would like to predict some entries for your 3x3.
Okay, go on.
You're gonna have Dragon Age Origins on there.
That's okay. Okay, maybe.
Purely on the basis that if you've played it that many times, it can't not be on there.
Okay, let's not spoil things. I'll get into my track history with Dragon Age Origins, but that's a decent shout. Do you have any other predictions?
Um, Guessing at least one Final Fantasy will be on there.
Okay, that's another interesting shout. Okay.
And then what else could be on there? With the exception of one game, I don't think we're going to have any titles in common.
That's another. That's
And
another.
with that,
Mm.
hmm?
That's another solid prediction that we won't have any
Yeah.
titles in common. So how do you want to do this? Shall we go game by game, each person, or shall we? I think that's a better way to do it than revealing all of our lists.
Yes, I think I agree with that.
So I think you should take it away. After you.
Okay, are you in a particular order or just in any order?
Shall we start with our best ones and then work our way down?
Okay.
What's your top game? What's your top trump?
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no. It's Halo Combat Evolved.
Halo Combat Evolved. Released, when was that? 2007? It was released with the Xbox, wasn't it? The original Xbox.
Not 2007. It's like 2001 or 2, isn't it?
Is it? When was the original Xbox
Yeah.
released? Let me see. So the original
2001.
Xbox,
That's what it says.
2001. Damn, we're old, man. We're getting up there. We're getting up there. Yeah, no, Halo 1. That's a good shout, you know. Not only because it was a good game, but because it also went on to spawn one of the highest selling franchises of all time. I think it's a good shout.
Something about the aesthetic just is a little bit timeless, I think.
Yeah. And I don't know about you. I think people had very strong opinions on the original Xbox controller. There were two versions released. There was the chunky boy, the fat one.
The Duke.
The Duke.
Yeah. No, that's what it's called.
Yeah. And then they later released a more slimmed down version. Now, I was always of the opinion that the chunky boy was my favorite. I really liked it. I don't know why. What did you think of
It was a good design, but it was too big for my child hands.
Really?
Yes.
When did you get the Xbox?
It can't have been much longer after that. Maybe...
How old were you?
I don't know, like 7 or 8.
Okay.
So it must have been like 2002, 2003.
Okay, so you were quite young. Was the Xbox your first console?
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't know this about you. We're learning some deep lore here.
Oh, really? I thought you already knew that.
No. And was Halo Combat Evolved your first game on the Xbox?
No, I played... Oh, on the Xbox it was, yeah. But I'd played before that on the PC a Sonic game. I don't know which one.
Okay. So you're... Okay, I think it's a great shout. Especially as we said, we're going to start from our best shots. I think it's a great start, but I think it may be coloured by, the nostalgia element. That it was your first console, first game.
Yes. I can see that, but also I did replay it. I've replayed it 4 times since. A couple of, I think the last 3 times being, the Master Chief Collection remasters.
Yeah. Wow. How many hours would you say you have in Halo Combat Evolved?
I don't know, at least 500.
Wow.
And spoilers, that's not the highest number for games on this list.
Oh. Okay. No, this is going to be interesting. So
it will be interesting.
Do you have anything else to add about Halo Combat Evolved? I think it's a good shout.
No, I don't think I've got anything else to add. It's just a very solid game. No. So, what do you have for your first one?
Okay. Well, in my humble opinion, I think my first one, which will be my strongest entry on this list, absolutely dominates Halo Combat Evolved. I think it's a much better game. In fact, I think it is one of the greatest games ever made, and certainly the greatest RPG ever made.
Bold claims.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to start with Dragon Age Origins.
Who could have seen it coming?
The greatest RPG ever.
I mean, given the
made.
number of times you've completed it.
Okay, so you just mentioned your absurd number of hours in Halo Combat Evolved. For those who don't know, Dragon Age Origins is set up in such a way that It's an RPG, and you have 6 potential starting areas, starting characters, and you have male and female variants of those starting characters. I have started a campaign in every single possible starting area with both genders. Although I've completed every single the story from the beginning to the end with every single potential starting area, but not with every single possible gender combination. It's a fantastic game. Yeah, I think it's
absurd.
It's not absurd. It's a fantastic game, and
I'll tell you why I think it's absurd though, because I'm looking at my Steam playtimes.
Yes,
and I only completed the game 3 times, maybe 2 times, and I'm looking at a playtime of 141 hours.
Oh no!
So I dread to think.
Oh no! No, I did. Oh. And here's the thing. I completed all of my fully completed playthroughs were with doing all of the DLC as well. So
Jesus.
I would not be surprised if I have over 1,000 hours in that game. I love that game. It's the last. I think it's the last true RPG of the modern era. Before a lot of game companies, especially game companies in the East, Square Enix, for example, who released the Final Fantasy games, started thinking that in order for their games to be popular in the West, they needed to be action RPGs rather than true RPGs. And the less said about Dragon Age 2, the better. But Dragon Age Origins is a fantastic RPG.
It's very good. Yeah.
Okay, so that's my toppest trump. What's your number 2?
So, I wonder if you want to introduce a second angle to this.
Uh-oh.
Whereby, now that you know one of the entries,
we
should ask a bit of a 20 questions.
Okay.
Because I'd like to ask, are there any other RPGs on your list?
Yes, there are. But before we move into this, I forgot to say something about Dragon Age Origins. Morrigan is the best girl, and she's one of the best and most intriguing female characters ever written in an RPG. That's I had to say that.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
But within her own game, she didn't have much competition, so...
Yes, true. No one picks Leliana. I'd rather pick Zevran, and I did in a few places, than Leliana. I mean, come on. Zevran's charming. And not even for just my female characters either. I was like, come on, man. I have to spice things up. I can't pick Morgan all the time. Zevran, you're the only choice. And there is an interesting scene in... Well, you'll know about this, but there is an interesting option in that game. And again, one of the last RPGs to give you like text options. So many options in that game. But within the game, there is an option to, shall I say, spend time with both Zevran, Leliana, and a character that then appears in Dragon Age 2. So, yeah, just a great game. But yeah, you were saying, yes, there are other RPGs on my list. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Number 2. What do I want to go with the next? Okay, this will not surprise you, this. Parasite Eve 2.
Okay, a classic.
A classic, but also extremely controversial in that most people say it's worse than the first game.
And what is your response to those people?
I don't really care if it's worse. I have a preference for the second one. Which is all that's required for it to be here.
But you don't even care to defend it. You just say no. It's a good game.
It's just a good game. It's the game which was good enough to make me tolerate tank controls and learning them. So it's got that going for it. Also very replayable.
Oh, another Japanese classic. How old were you when you played Parasite Eve?
Like 25. 6 or 7.
All right, so you were old enough that you wouldn't get scarred by what's in that game as a child.
No, I wouldn't get scarred by it. Although there are some very freaky FMV cutscenes, which, if you were a child, could definitely scar you.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, they don't. FMV cutscenes have kind of been taken out of games. They don't really do them anymore, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, a lot of games in engine now they're strong enough that they sort of make up the difference, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to a degree. But it's one of those games that has very charming PS1 graphics.
Mm-hmm.
This game narrowly beat Vagrant Story for this position.
Ooh. No, that's to have it second on your list is really high. What was it about the game or the story that affected you so much? Especially since you played it as an adult, so you've got better perspective than maybe you would have done if you were nostalgic about it.
So it's just a very tight and to the point game. It only takes it took me about 14 hours to beat it on my first playthrough.
Yep.
And there was a lot of inefficiency because you don't know what the map is or anything, so you wander around backtracking. But at no point do you feel like, oh man, I just wish this would end. It's just appropriately paced throughout. It's not a game to be taken too seriously, which isn't a bad thing.
What is it?
And there's
about?
A nice selection of weapons.
What is it about?
So it is about Ayabrea, the protagonist from the first game. 2 years later, I think. She's now like a bounty hunter for monsters in the vein of like Resident Evil monsters, sort of. But it's a game with like a really weird development history where it was initially going to be a spin-off sequel, but then it got taken over by some of the staff from previous Resident Evil games, which is why it went from being like a free movement control scheme to tank controls. Just very interesting. What's it about? It's just like a Resident Evil plot, basically. Find the source of the monsters, have an action adventure,
and win.
Yeah,
it's good. Good shot. Good number 2.
Have you played it?
No,
or any of them?
So I know of Parasite Eve because it's a very, very I'd say it's more of a cult classic Japanese. I wouldn't even say it's an RPG. It's like you say, very Resident Evil-esque. But yeah, I know of Parasite Eve, but I've never played it myself. But I've watched videos about it and its story and everything like that. But I haven't played it. Yeah.
So how does that line up against your number 2?
Oh, I think my number 2 dominates Parasite Eve.
Of course you do. Yep.
So my number 2 is going to be another classic, created by a director, producer, visionary, before he completely went off the deep end and started making absurd games. I am, of course,
Mr. Kojima.
Talking about a Kojima classic.
Oh no.
The best game he's ever made. Undoubtedly. I don't think anyone can really even contest it. My number 2 is the classic, the immortal Metal Gear Solid.
The first one?
Yes. PS1. I played this game for the first time when I was a kid. I must have been 9, 10, something like that. I was very, very young, and anyone who's played Metal Gear Solid will tell you it's quite a mature game with mature themes. And I remember everything about it, from the story to the music to the voice acting. It was just, as a kid, I remember thinking, this is basically a movie in game format. Like, I'm playing I'm playing as whoever the name of Tom Cruise's character is in Mission Impossible. I'm playing as that guy.
Oh,
It was just mind blowing.
and in your video game catalog at the time,
Yeah.
what were its contemporaries? Just for a bit of context.
I can't really remember in detail all of the PS1 games I had. What did we have? This would have been so much easier if I was at home, because we still have those black, they're not really cases, but these holding files that you can get, and when you open them, they have spaces for discs.
It's like a card binder, but for discs.
Yes. So I have that over at my parents' house, and I'd be able to look through it. The ones that I remember for PS1 are G Police, which a lot of people, those who know G Police.
That's a bit of a cult classic in itself.
Yes. Yeah. Very hard game though, for a kid, but really great. What else? I can't remember. I can remember my PS2 games better. We had, Star Ocean Till the End of Time, which was fantastic. We had other games that are going to appear on my list that I won't mention. But contemporaries with Metal Gear Solid, I can't remember in detail. But for sure, of the PS1 games I had and played, it was the most affecting. I thought it was an amazing game. And it's so amazing that they're making a remake of it.
Oh, really?
I know Konami recently announced that, because let's be honest, they haven't got much creativity since the madman himself left the studio. But yeah,
well, you can only spam pachinko machines featuring the Fox engine for so many years.
Metal Gear Solid. When Meryl, so I didn't realize as a kid that if you're good enough at the game, you could save Meryl. And those who have played the game will know exactly what I'm talking about. So every time I played through the game, and I must have played through it 5 or 6 times as a kid, I couldn't save Meryl, partly because I didn't know you could do it. But yeah, I'd just be late. I just wouldn't be good enough every time, and Meryl's death was really always very sad. And the final fight between Snake and Liquid was just absurd. Fighting on top of the Metal Gear, fighting the Metal Gear, the final cinematic ride out of the base as you're fighting Liquid as well. It's insanity. But it's constrained insanity. It's directed insanity from Hideo Kojima before he went, fully mental. So Metal Gear Solid is my number 2. I think it's a great game.
Well, that leads nicely on then to my number 3.
Hit me with it.
3 being the appropriate number. Metal Gear Solid 3. It was a fight between 3 and 5, but 5 lost because it wasted too much of my time with directed by Hideo Kojima after every single mission, and it just makes the game unreplayable.
Music by, film by, motion capture by, everything by.
It's too much.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot like Parasite Eve 2, Metal Gear Solid 3 is very tight and focused, and at no point are you like, man, can we just move on from this?
Yeah. You know what? I actually think Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, which has one of the best main themes I've ever heard, better than any James Bond movie. It's just a sensational game. Again, one of those games that makes you feel like you're playing through a movie, like you're the James Bond or you're the whatever the hell Tom Cruise's character is in the Mission Impossible movies. I actually think your shout of Metal Gear Solid 3. Metal Gear Solid 3 I think is a better game than I think. Yeah, I think that's an amazing shout. That's an amazing.
Well, by that point, it had time to like be refined. So,
What are your favorite memories from that game, or favorite parts of it?
favorite parts of it. So, the first time I ever saw the game
Yeah.
was at a friend's house, and his older brother was playing it, and I saw the system where you have to like remove bullets and arrows from Snake, and like apply ointments and bandages and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I'd never seen anything like that before. And then in terms of the actual game part, just the jungle setting and, like you said with the first one, very cinematic.
Yeah.
The bit that sticks in my mind is the final scene. Spoilers somewhat. Not that it really matters out of context. Where Ocelot makes you pick a gun, and then afterwards he gets thrown out of the moving aircraft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like with a lot of Metal Gear games, there are so many things which, out of context, make no sense. Again, Kojima is mental, but yeah, great game.
Like, who even came up with the concept of the pain as a boss fight? And so, your number 3.
My number 3 is Fallout New Vegas.
Oh, that's a surprising one.
Yes. This was one of the later editions. I think I played this in my mid-teens. Again,
on PC or on console?
On console, on the Xbox 360. And it's another game that I must have played, so many times. Again, another great text RPG, and when I say text RPG, I mean you get lots of options of what your character would say. And yeah, I think it's the best Fallout game that's ever been made. I don't think that's a controversial opinion. Great characters as well, great writing. Yeah, great game.
I certainly don't think there's much in it between New Vegas 3 and 4. They're all quite good games, but yeah, New Vegas, very good. I've played it a fair bit as well. Steam's telling me 317 hours.
Yeah, that's a fair bit. That's quite a bit. But it's one of those games that's worth it, and I think it has one of the best written and most interesting video game characters of all time in Joshua Graham, who
all right.
The Burn Man is very scary. Yeah.
I didn't play that DLC.
You have to purchase it now during the Steam Summer Sale and go back and play it. He's an amazing character. I won't spoil too much about him, but yeah, very, very.
All I know is people love him because he says we can't expect God to do all the work.
Yes, yeah, he's not playing around. He's one of those guys that says frightening things with a straight face and in a very serious way. He's not playing. He believes in the righteousness of God's fury. He's like a Black Templar in Warhammer. You just say, yeah, there's no point even talking to this guy. It's too far gone. But yeah. What's your number 4?
Number 4. Okay. I'm gonna go to my single indie selection now. World of Horror.
I've never heard of that game.
So if you are able to, I think you should look up or Google an image of it, because it relies heavily on its aesthetics. It's basically, I don't know if it's quite accurate to call it a point-and-click adventure game, but that's how you control your character, through text boxes.
I see it.
There's no like real-time combat, but it's got very heavy Lovecraftian influences, and it's also a roguelite. So at the start of your game, you'll have 6 mysteries from a selection of 20 odd, and what you want to do is you want to solve the mysteries, which always culminate with horrible decisions that need to be made. and eventually break into the lighthouse using the keys you get from the end of the mysteries, and then confront the particular great old one that is the boss of the run. But it's basically, the game is carried by its atmosphere. Not that it's weak in other aspects, but it's a great game. I think it's still in early access, but it's at the point where you could comfortably spend. I think it's only £15, and feel like you've got your money's worth.
Yeah, I've just googled some images as you suggested, and it looks very Junji Ito inspired, very horrifying.
Yes. And also, although I've never tried it, it's apparently got quite a good community modding scene. So I imagine I'll give it some longevity.
Yeah, it looks like it could have some potential for real nightmare fuel, especially if you allow the some of the I'm not going to say degenerates, some of the interesting boys,
the maestros.
Yeah, some of the interesting boys out there in the modding community to get their hands on it.
Yeah.
So what are we on now?
So I think you're on number 4.
Yes.
I would say if you have any indie games, now is the time to raise them.
I don't have any indie games. My number 4, I think my number 9 is going to get a groan out of you. I can see it now. But my number 4 is... Oh, okay. I'm between two games. I'm gonna go with one from left field. I'm gonna say my number 4 is Crusader Kings 2.
Oh, okay.
Really good strategy game, and it teaches you a lot about geography and history, actually. So it's one of those games that's educational in a way that's that you wouldn't it's not a game that's trying to preach to you or trying to be an education game, but you just learn as you're playing about these different regions of the world, these different cultures, and how to brutally conquer them and convert them.
What more could you ask for?
Yeah, forcefully. But yeah, no. Crusader Kings 2 is a really, really great game, and it's one of the few PC only games that I've dumped a whole bunch of hours into and that I really enjoy. So yeah. Okay.
So is it like Civ 5 in that you enjoy the idea of playing the game, but then you never play it because you realize the number of games you actually finish is relatively low?
I think it's very similar to that, and for me, because there are multiple starting dates, you can start, but my games in CK2, I always started at the earliest possible date, which was 869, before the Viking invasions of Europe, the sort of raids and pillaging and everything like that. So I started at 1869, and the game goes all the way to the I think 14th or 15th century. So you can imagine that to complete a single CK2 run, unless you're trying to speed run it and conquer the whole world, would take like 200 to 300 hours minimum.
Ooh.
So yeah, it's one of those games.
And that's assuming that none of the actual players have like a PC which takes 60 seconds to process a turn.
Exactly. So yeah, it is intimidating in terms of its length, but it's a great game. I really enjoy it. Yeah,
it's a surprising selection. So I was just writing down what your list's been so far, and I've got Dragon Age Origins, Metal Gear, and Crusader Kings 2. What's the one I'm missing?
So it was Dragon Age Origins number 1, Metal Gear Solid number 2, Fallout New Vegas number 3, and CK2 number 4.
All right, I've got that down.
So we're halfway. Pretty
We're at
much.
the halfway point.
What's your number 5?
Number 5. I'm just debating whether to leave the spicy one till the end. Okay, so number 5 is, I'm going to cheat a bit here, and you may have to force me to choose a single entry here. So it's either Armored Core For Answer or Armored Core Last Raven.
Ooh.
I'm swithering.
I don't think I've played either of those two, so I can't. Are you trying to do a joint number 5 here?
If it's allowed, yeah.
Since they're both from the same series, I think it's acceptable. It's got to be.
Basically, I didn't want to have 2 entries from a single series.
No, that's acceptable. We'll take that. We'll take that.
And I mean, the core reason that I like both of them is basically the same anyway. Loads of customization, a rare mech game that is actually good, nice atmosphere, and your choices actually can determine the ending of the games in both of these games. So,
and of course, we have to look forward to the newest Armored Core game coming out soon.
We do, launching in August at some point, I think.
And you'll have plenty of time to play it.
Yes.
I meant that as a good thing.
I don't know if I'll probably wait like a year for the price to come down. There's no rush. Besides, all FromSoft games, well, all recent ones, they get a DLC that's fairly sizable after a year, don't they?
Yeah. Well, I suppose it will depend on how well this newest Armored Core game does. I think you've been across the the developments in terms of its release date and everything like that. Have you been looking at the reaction online at all?
So I've seen a tiny bit of the reaction online, but I've not watched any trailers for a while. I'm somewhat going in blind. Basically, the reaction online seems to be split down the middle. People who want it to secretly be another Souls game, and people who desperately do not want that. And I'll be honest, my gut reaction is I don't want that. We already have 5 Souls games, and maybe 6.
I think
that's quite like an Armored Core.
A Souls game by implication, by just making it, of course, an Armored Core game, but hard. Really, really hard.
Yeah, I suppose so. But either way, I sort of look forward to seeing it, so fingers crossed that it's good.
Yeah, I'm hoping so.
One thing that will be interesting, though, is if it's not very different from previous ones, but if it gets a much better critical reception, purely because it's new.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see.
But yeah, hopefully now that From Software has become a better known studio and they have, From Software fans, this Armored Core newest one will do really well, and then that will result in more Armored Core games, or just more studios realizing that mech games are viable, because that's one of the bigger disappointments to me in modern gaming, that we don't have more games about mechs and customizing mechs and all of this other stuff that's so good about Armored Core.
I fully agree, and we still have 3 more games on my list that involve mechs.
Ooh, okay. You're okay. You're preparing the ingredients to cook something spicy. I can smell it. Whilst you do some chopping, I'm gonna go into my 5th one, which is Mass Effect 2.
A good choice.
Yeah.
I was just talking today with my brother, and we were both saying Mass Effect 2 best gameplay of the four.
Absolutely, absolutely, and the best story too. I just think it was again the game before the studio and the creators decided to decided to throw decided to
Decided to throw.
decided to stop making good games. So yeah, Mass Effect 2 is the best. It's really really good.
You don't want to take this opportunity to dunk heavily on Andromeda, or you think that's been covered already?
Andromeda is it was bad on release and it gets a lot of hate, but for me Andromeda is not as egregious as Mass Effect 3, which I bought around the time of launch, using vouchers I'd actually won at school, because I thought, oh wow, I can get this game with these vouchers, instead of getting the maths exercise books. Anyway, so I got Mass Effect 3, and anyone who knows the history of Mass Effect 3 will know that it has many flaws, especially in the story department. But the most egregious element of Mass Effect 3 were the endings, which were really, really unacceptable. So, yeah, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna take the opportunity to highlight that for the 1000th time. The Mass Effect 3 endings were really bad. But Andromeda, I have no real negativity towards. It was just everyone could see it wasn't great from the beginning.
Yeah. I found it quite monotonous to play. But the real question: Mako or Hammerhead?
Ooh.
This is important. If you get this wrong, it's over right now.
Hammerhead.
You fuck. I disagree.
You disagree? Okay, go on.
I'm Team Mako, Mako, or whatever it's called.
Why is that?
I just like driving over the barren planets with nothing on them and just bouncing around. And also, I felt like the mandatory Hammerhead sections were a little bit egregious in 2.
I get where you're coming from, but it was a nice change of pace. Whereas I don't want to just be rolling around in a barren island barren planet for no reason. Whereas at least with the Hammerhead, I can shoot things and feel like, oh, this is kind of cool. Yeah, I stand by my Hammerhead decision.
That's all right. That's fine.
And one of the most addictive elements of Mass Effect, of course, is probing every planet possible for the natural resource.
Yeah, I hear they made that a bigger part of Mass Effect 3 with the whole war resources thing.
Yeah, you had to do it in order to. Yeah, I mean, in 2, recruiting people and getting resources was important for, the outcome you'd get at the end of the game in terms of.
The survival.
Yeah, the survivability of your crew. But definitely in Mass Effect 3, it's a bigger thing. And it can decide how many of the 3 endings you have access to. But yeah, probing island, I probed every single planet in the game that's probable. So on every playthrough. So
you went through the 4 loading screens per mass relay to get to the individual planets.
Exactly. Yeah.
Dedication.
Absolutely. I wasn't playing around. Mass Effect 2 is a great game, for sure. Okay, so you're number 6, I think.
Number 6, and it's a different one compared to the others. Supreme Commander 2, an RTS, controversial because it's widely considered to be a dumbed down sequel to Supreme Commander Forged Alliance. But it's plenty complex for me. It's just like very easy to recommend to people.
I see.
If you understand StarCraft, you understand this. There are some key differences, obviously, but it's just a nice pick up and play RTS, featuring mechs, of course.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Story's nothing to write home about. Graphics are not intense, but if you ask me, that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Even potato PCs can run it. So,
Mm-hmm. Is this one of the games that was FMV heavy?
so it has cutscenes that aren't in engine,
Mm-hmm.
but the dialogue and the story are so bad you would never want to praise them. It's not the core of the game, really.
Mm-hmm.
The core of the game's just do your casual RTS things, and also there's a research system which lets you upgrade your units. And it's deep enough that you can't just spam one thing and have an assured victory. But it is a lot more shallow than Forged Alliance, which is the previous game.
I see.
Which I would also fully recommend. It was a close thing between these two games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good shot.
Do you have any RTSs remaining?
No. Oh, yes, I do actually.
Ooh, let's hear it.
My list is hard because there are two games on here that I really love, which I think. Well, to be fair, it is my 3x3, my best 9 games, so it was always going to be a difficult decision. I'm not going to put my final RTS next. Instead, I'm going to put Final Fantasy X next. It is a legendary game. Back when, I have to remember, this game was released on the PS2, and
it was the first of the PS2 Final Fantasies, wasn't it?
It was, and for its time, this game, it was absolutely revolutionary. The graphics, the story, it's just an absolutely amazing game. And one of the best Final Fantasies. The last truly turn-based Final Fantasy so far. After 10, they messed about with lots of different systems, but it was never truly turn-based again. And whilst that's really sad for me, I think to finish on a game like Final Fantasy X with that kind of system was great. It's an amazing game. I spent an inordinate amount of time on the chocobo race in order to get the final, in order to get the best weapon for Tidus. I did the jungle run thing as well to get the weapon for just to get. There are so many menial tasks you have to do in order to get the best weapons for your characters in the game that I did all of them. Even the Thunder Plains mini game where you have to dodge 200 bolts of lightning in a row. I did it. I love the game. It's fantastic.
So you failed to mention something that I feel should be mentioned. Smash Ball.
Yeah. Of course, I did that as well, and I won in order to get the. I forget his name. In order to get his ball, his
Waka.
Waka. Yeah, in order to get Waka's ultimate weapon in the game. Yeah. Of course, I did Smash Ball. I spent.
Did you do it legit though, or did you hide behind your own goal to break the enemy AI?
So you see, I started doing it legitimately, and then I started looking at a guide on how to get all of the weapons, and that's when I learned about this bug that makes the enemy AI just spin around in a circle. So originally I did start doing it myself, and then I thought, once I saw this trick inadvertently at first, I thought, why am I wasting tens of hours of my life doing all of these things when I can do it easily? So yes, I will confess that ultimately I did exploit the game in order to get his ultimate.
once you know about it, you can't not do it because it's just
It saves so much
your
time.
time's too valuable.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But definitely, have you played? Have you played FF10?
I have. I've got a bit of a sad tale of this game. How
Oh.
I bought the remastered version,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not exactly. Well, maybe I'm just an idiot, but it's not exactly clear upon startup if you're playing the remaster or the original graphics.
Mm-hmm.
So I got up to the area right after the Snowy Mountains, like
Yes.
chapter 10 or 11 or something.
Yes.
Um, and then I just happened to be browsing through the main menu, and I realized, oh, I've been playing with the original graphics this whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So I started a new game
Mm-hmm.
with the new graphics to see how they looked.
Mm-hmm.
Accidentally saved over my other save, and I was like, you know
Oh.
what, we're done. I don't care anymore. And then I traded the game in for some like £4 of store credit probably,
Oh.
and that was how my Final Fantasy X ended.
You did it to yourself.
I did do it to myself by only having one save. You are correct. Yeah.
No, but it's a great game, especially the ending, and a testament to how great it was and how well it sold is that it was the first Final Fantasy game to get a sequel. So there's Final Fantasy X and then Final Fantasy X-2. Yeah, just a great game. Really love it. Yeah, so we're going down to the dregs here, the bottom three games.
Yes.
I mean, they're still our favorite games, but they're not quite up there. So what's your number 7?
Number 7. So I've got Monster Hunter Freedom Unite there.
Okay.
PSP game.
Mm-hmm.
Played way too many hours of this, easily over 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Got a permanent scar on my thumb from using my broken thumbstick. Just a very, very good game.
Mm-hmm.
You could play it with up to 4 people. So the core conceit of the game is you hunt monsters,
Mm-hmm.
they drop materials, you make better gear,
Mm-hmm.
you hunt more difficult monsters, rinse, repeat.
Yeah.
Everything just works. It just works.
It just works.
It just works.
Yeah.
It's a bit grindy for like modern sensibilities, which is why the modern games have streamlined things a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very good, very good. It's all about like pattern recognition, though. Really, once I suppose it's a bit like Dark Souls in that way, in that once you know the patterns, it's sort of trivial.
Yeah.
But if you don't know the patterns, you're gonna hit a wall so hard.
Yeah, I
Very
feel
good game.
like the Monster Hunter formula is you love it or you don't. And,
Yeah.
I think it's great.
One thing about it is, though, it's a good example of a Japanese game eventually succeeding in the West.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In that, for years, it was popular in Japan, and then round about the time of Freedom Unite, actually, their marketing really ramped up, and by ramped up, I mean became existent outside of Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got a lot of sequels, and then World did really quite well.
Yep. Yeah. It's one of those games that's truly more so a global game than just a Japanese game. Like something else that I will be referring to later on.
Almost a very smooth segue.
Yeah, so my number 7 is Pokémon Ruby.
Oh,
there we go. There's the segue.
So which console was that on?
So that was on the Game Boy Advanced.
The little square one.
Yeah, Game Boy Advanced. Blaziken, or Torchic is the best starter since Charmander. Yeah, it was. I mean, everyone at this point, everyone knows what a Pokemon game is and what the conceit is. There's no you start off with a Pokemon, you catch other Pokemon, you win, you get all the gym badges, you trade with your friends, you battle your friends if you want to, and yeah, that's it. But you know, it was a great game. Not my first Pokemon game, but the Pokemon game that I put most of the most hours into. And yeah, really loved the starter. Really liked the story. Yeah, it's a Pokemon game, but it's one of the best.
It's a proven formula.
Yeah. It works. It just works.
It just works.
Yeah. So you are on number 8. You've only got 2 more to go.
So, second to last one is 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. Or is that pronounced Aegis Rim?
I've never heard of that.
It is... Ooh, I'm gonna disappoint people here by not remembering the company's name. But it's by the company that made Muramasa Devil Blade and Odin Sphere Luftriser, which are very beloved games.
Yeah.
They've got a very distinctive art style. Let me just look up. I think he's called George something or other. I'll look that up.
13 Sentinels Aegis Rim.
George Kamatani, yeah. He's got a very distinctive art style that people quite like.
Oh, it's a relatively new game, 2019.
It is, yeah.
It's interesting. And
So
I see that it's a mech game as well.
It is a mech game.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a game of 2 halves.
Mm-hmm.
The first half is a sort of point and click mystery solving game.
Yep.
The second half, it's the half that takes part in mechs, and that is a
combat,
sort of a tower defense RTS with pause, and it plays out in what I suppose you could call turns, but really it's in like 3-second intervals, I think. So it's quite good, not terribly difficult, but it can cause the PS4 to chug a bit at times from the amount of particle effects on screen. Even though, if you're looking at pictures, it's not a very graphically advanced game. But the story is the main draw because it's told from the 13 characters' perspectives. And the perspectives are not linear in time, so you have to piece together from each perspective. And it's basically like a love letter to science fiction media.
Yeah.
And I'd highly recommend it.
So is it quite a long game then, if you have all of these different elements and parts that you need to piece together?
It's only...
Perspectives even.
Heavy parenthesis, only about 34 hours or something.
Okay. And you're...
And I'd say it doesn't overstay its welcome.
I see. And are you able to understand the perspectives of all 13 characters in that time?
Yes. So the game does have like a... I don't know if they call it a codex, but it's essentially a codex which lets you view events chronologically. So if you were having difficulty following it, you could just go to this page within the game and see events in the order they occurred, and then you could be like, oh, this is the chain of action and consequence, and this is the thread we're following. Yeah. But I don't want to say anything in depth about the plot.
You don't want to spoil it.
It's just really... No, I don't want to spoil it. It's something you should just experience firsthand.
But it's a good story.
It is a good story. It is, yeah.
So number 8. So what's the rule here? Are we allowed to have 2 games from a different franchise? From 2 games from the same franchise? Yeah.
You can. I just didn't want to for Armored Core, but you can, yeah.
I'm going to put Final Fantasy 12 on here as well.
12.
Yes. The one that many...
Is that Zodiac Age?
Oh, I was about to say the one that many people now know under the name the Zodiac Age, but I'm talking about the OG Final Fantasy 12, the PS2
Did it
version.
originally have a subtitle? Or
No, it didn't. It was just Final
No,
Fantasy. Final Fantasy 12, the Zodiac Age, is the same thing as Persona 5 Royale. You know, it has... It's the version with all of these different additions and improvements and... Yeah. And back then, you know, when it was released on the PS2, you didn't have DLC. The game that was shipped was the game that you got. You know, it was a bit different when the Xbox 360 and PS3 came out, in that you got free updates, sometimes even at launch. But yeah, Final Fantasy 12. I'd say it's the Final Fantasy game with the weakest quote-unquote protagonist. You could even argue there isn't a protagonist. There's many main characters, such that the first main character that you play as, Vaughn, essentially falls into the background and becomes less and less relevant to the story. But the story itself is very interesting. The combat system is interesting in that it's halfway between the sort of turn-based system that Final Fantasy games were known for a long time, and partway into the sort of action RPG combat style that Final Fantasy games are doing nowadays. And its skill leveling system is still, I think, the best in the entire franchise, with the board that you move across, such that each of the characters can almost, learn any kind of weapon style or skill or magic.
Okay, so it's similar to is it called the Sphere Grid in 10? Yeah.
It's very similar to the sphere Grid, but the beauty of it is that it's less limiting than the Sphere Grid is. They essentially, Final Fantasy 12, they basically let you spec your character in any way that you want. You can move across this checkered board in any direction from the start of the game to the end of the game. There are no limits in the way that the Sphere Grid has blocked spheres that you need special blocked nodes, that you need special spheres in order to unlock. It's just such a great game. I did say it has a good story. It's not the best story in Final Fantasy, but it's pretty good. Yeah.
So you mentioned the weakest protagonist.
Yes.
Have you played Final Fantasy VIII?
Final Fantasy VIII is the one with the gun blades, right?
It is, yes.
No, I haven't played through it myself.
Okay.
Do you think that the main character there is the weakest?
I don't think that. I've heard people don't like him very much. Squall.
Oh. His name is unfortunate. That's. I think it's not a very good name.
But apparently he's very edgy, and for that reason people don't like him. But I've never played it.
Yeah.
But if you've also not played it, then I suppose there's not very much to be said.
Well, the only thing I would say about Final Fantasy VIII is that it's lauded as having one of the better stories. So, and I think it's another one of the Final Fantasies that has a lot of supporting characters. So it could be that people dislike Squall because he's not like a character in the game that they actually like, more so than him just being terrible. But I haven't played it myself.
Alrighty. The moment of truth. So there's a question that must be answered before this one.
Yep.
Are visual novels games?
Yes, they are. Yeah, I'd say they are. Because you can interact with them.
Okay. Well, number 10, Muv Luv. So nowadays they sometimes ship them together as Muv Luv and Muv Luv Unlimited. So I'm just talking generally the whole trilogy.
Mm.
Just a very, well, to me anyway, novel and engaging story. It's a bit of a hard sell, to be honest, because it switches genre 1/3 of the way through.
Okay.
And you can guess the problem with that. People who want the second genre can't sit through 1/3 of the game being a genre they don't like.
Yeah.
And the opposite way. But it's a story that's very much worth it, if you ask me.
And how long does it take to complete?
A good 120 hours if you take every route.
Whew.
If you were just powering the main 2 required reading routes, then maybe 100 hours. It's a big ask.
Yeah, it's a commitment.
But it's the first time that essentially a book has had me like on the edge of my seat. But it's a bit dated. It came out in 2000 the first part 2003, I think, and then the second part 2006 or 7. So it is a tiny bit dated, but I think it holds up reasonably well. I'm speaking in vague terms here so as not to give any spoiler details.
How would you rate the story out of 10?
So the first 1/3 I would not rate it very highly at all because of the genre. And the genre is rom-com, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because people are going to see it and they're going to see, oh, it's just generic. Because it is generic. Or now it's generic. Perhaps at like 2003 it wasn't generic, but... And then the second half is a military science fiction, or the second 2/3.
Wow. That's interesting. Yeah. And is the ending worth it? Do you look back and say, okay, that was a good use of my time? Because sometimes you get to the end of a game or a media property and you think that was not.
So the ending is a bit controversial in that it's kind of weak. So the last third is a game in and of itself. And the ending is considered the weakest part of that because it was rushed. But at the same time, you can tell it had a lot of care put into what was there. But it was rushed because of financial problems, in that the creator had to sell his house and his car to fund the ending of this game.
Wow. That's commitment.
Yeah. So it's a love it or hate it ending.
But was the creator vindicated? Does he now have a car and a house?
I believe he does now have a car and a house. But he's since made in many people's eyes, not very good management decisions about the series, so he no longer owns it, although he still writes for it. But it's many people think it's now a dead franchise, and I'm kind of inclined to agree. But if you ever find yourself with a spare 120 odd hours, worth it.
So now I'm on to... Was that your last one?
That was the last one, yeah.
Okay, so before I reveal my number 9, I have to go and quickly, 30 seconds, go down and grab a package that I was left behind the wheelie bin, apparently. And that was 3 hours ago, so hopefully it's still there. And whilst I'm gone, you can either entertain our imaginary audience with something. But I'll be back in 30 seconds.
Okay. Well, while he's gone, why don't I go through some honorable mentions? So, Lost Planet 2, very fun. Much better than the first one, I would say. Very different genres. Unfortunately, can't be played on PC very easily thanks to Games for Windows Live. But it's a good third-person shooter with some mech element. Another honorable mention. Dead Space 1. Probably played through that 6 or 7 times. It's just a very fun, competent horror game. I know it's had a remake recently. Not played that, but if it's anything like the original, it should be good.
Okay.
Oh, you're back.
They've been enjoying the comic stylings of your comic stylings, have they?
I'm sure they were. All I did was mention some honorable mentions that didn't quite make it.
Oh, actually, I'll hit you. I'll start this final one with by hitting you with an honorable mention that didn't make it.
But before you do though,
Mm-hmm.
I forgot to note down your last entry,
Number 9.
number 9.
I'm about to reveal that.
Oh no, sorry, number 8. I mean,
Number 8 was
Final Fantasy something, was it?
Final Fantasy 12.
Final Fantasy 12.
Yeah, the honorable mention that didn't quite make it was FIFA 2010, which I knew would get a reaction. I put too many hours into that game, but great game. The best FIFA, the last great FIFA. But those aren't really my type of game. Oh, and another honorable mention, Football Manager as well. Football Manager 2012. Again, dumped a lot of hours into that game. But my real number 9.
Interesting.
My real number 9 is the RTS I mentioned before, and it's going to be XCOM 2.
Nice.
Great game. Again, another game that's heavily supported by the modding community to the point where you can mod it into a completely different game than the developers imagined, which is a good thing because the original game had some issues and some things which you would naturally expect to be in a game like that aren't in a game like that, but were put in by the modders. So yeah, XCOM 2 is my number 9.
How far in are you?
I've completed it a couple of playthroughs. Yeah, I've done a couple of playthroughs all the way through it.
Because that was a relatively recent purchase, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah. So yeah, XCOM 2.
Yeah, I really liked that game as well.
And I've watched it being played so many times. So yeah, XCOM 2. It's my number 9.
Good choice. Good choice.
So there we have it.
There we have it, indeed.
3 by 3.
Yeah. Well, nothing really disagreeable there.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd say in this vein is that pretty much all of the games that I've mentioned are games that I played when I was a kid or a teenager. And a big part of that, it's not because I've gone off games or I don't like games anymore. It's just as you get older, the time just isn't there. If you want to do other things in life, when you have a job and other commitments and all of this other stuff. So it's unfortunate that I'm not able to play games as often as I used to and as much as I would like. And I'm gonna try and make time for that because it was a really fun and great hobby for me that I really haven't done in a while. Same thing as reading for fun is
yeah. What's next on your hit list for games?
There's this Steam summer sale on, and I've never played Final Fantasy 13, but I won't be able to really dedicate time to playing a game this month. It doesn't look like so. It's just a matter of getting all the things I need to do done as quickly as possible this month, and maybe towards the end, if I've been quick enough, have a few days to just unwind and play something.
Mm.
You know, I also have a Switch, so I've heard great things about the game Hades. I think it won Game of the Year,
Oh yeah.
but I haven't played it, so maybe invest in that as well. But yeah, that's definitely a goal is to spend some time playing games.
Yeah. So on the next episode,
Mm.
what do you fancy discussing?
We'll work on it. We'll talk about it. It might be time for my manifesto.
Oof.
Or if you think the audience isn't quite ready, we can ease them in with some Warhammer propaganda.
Oh no. A deep lore episode.
A deep lore episode. Or it would just be cool to discuss Warhammer, how we got into it, what we think about it, discuss ideas about the upcoming Cavill series, and just talk Warhammer. I think would be quite
That's a
interesting.
good idea.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. But yeah, I think we had a great episode. It's all about the content. It's all about the content.